Good morning. My name is Barbara Fuller, and as Chair of the Board, I welcome you to this June 17th, 2025 working session of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Our Communications Manager, Tiffany Oliphant, will describe how our meetings operate, how to access the agenda packet, and how people may participate remotely. Tiffany.
There are multiple ways to make public comment during today's board meeting, whether you are joining us in person or virtually. If you are here in person and would like to make public comment, please fill out the sign-in sheet now. If you are joining us virtually, we will ask you to raise your hand at the appropriate time in the agenda.
Thank you. At this time, I call the meeting to order officially and ask Tiffany to call the roll.
Chair Barb Fuller,
Present.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Present.
Commissioner Jeff Smurs,
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas, and Commissioner Joanne McCollum are not here right at this moment. The following directors are in attendance: Managing Director Matt McDonough, Director of Engineering and County Highway Engineer Brent Schlack, Director of Operations Adam Lape.
At this time, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda of the working session as presented.
So moved. I support.
Tiffany, if you'd please call the roll.
Commissioner Jeff Smurs,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. Next item on the working session agenda is public comment. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board, and Tiffany will explain how people may be recognized to offer comments.
There are multiple ways to make public comment during today's working session, whether you're joining us in person or virtually. If you're in person and would like to make public comment, please fill out the sign-in sheet. If you're joining us virtually, you can raise your hand at the appropriate time in the agenda. Since this is a hybrid meeting for both in-person and virtual attendees, we'll take turns between both attending in person and virtually. At this time, there are no public comments.
Thank you. We will move on to the agenda of the working session, and at this time, I will turn the gavel over to Matt McDonough, Managing Director.
Thank you, Chair Fuller. First on the agenda is an update on the Maple Road Foster Bridge closure. I'd like to invite up Brent Schlack and Aaron Burkholz to talk about that.
Good morning, Brent Schlack, Director of Engineering.
And Aaron Burkholz, Assistant Director of Engineering.
So I'm going to show a few pictures. I guess I'll start with, fortunately, how we learned of this, we received a WCRC fix-it request from a kayaker or boater, and they had recognized a part on the bridge didn't look right. So we then, Nate Murphy, our bridge engineer, went out to investigate what the issue was and recognized that there was the part that had failed was a post-tensioning cable. Where's mine?
That's
Of course.
amazing. They use the Fix-It app.
They did use the Fix-It app.
Yeah, and it was, you're up on the screen.
You're on the screen. You're
Oh,
extended.
all right. I'm like,
And-
where
and,
is?
As Brent said, it was interesting because the report came in on a Sunday evening.
I'm gonna.
Again, I'll refer to it as a good Samaritan. And I give credit to that person for seeing something and saying something.
Yeah.
They were in a boat, clearly from the picture, they must have been in a boat or I guess for a swim. But took a picture, and recognized that just doesn't look right. Something's not right. And so reported it via the website. The way that they reported it, they identified it as, guardrail. And I kind of understand their perspective. That they thought, well, it's a cable, it's kind of near the guardrail, so I'm going to put it under the guardrail category. So initially it went to traffic and safety. Monday morning promptly, it went from traffic and safety to Nate, our bridge engineer, and then Nate Murphy went out and investigated it. Upon arriving on site and observing the broken cable, Nate immediately closed the bridge. And I completely agree with that call. This bridge is very unique. I can say I worked on the bridge during the extensive rehabilitation back in 2003. At the time, I probably wasn't a baby engineer, but maybe I was a teenage engineer at that point. Here I stand 22 years later as a veteran engineer. It was a very unique project. Again, there was a great desire by the local community to retain this bridge and to not have a new bridge constructed in this location. And so that being said, there was a rehabilitation undertaken. Part of that was to add these cables to the bridge to provide additional structural integrity. A bridge like this, a truss bridge of this nature, and it's the same with our other truss bridge on East Delhi Road, are fracture critical bridges. That means there are certain components in a bridge of this nature, this structure. If those components break, the bridge fails catastrophically. It falls down. That's just the nature of a truss bridge. So it's not every component, but there are certain components on that bridge that if they fail, the bridge falls down. Modern bridges now are built with redundancy. So modern bridges, you can have a piece break and it gives the engineer time to respond. The bridge doesn't fall down. You identify there's an issue, you undertake repair. Again, in the case of this bridge in 2003, the contractor at that time was Anlon Corporation. Anlon is still around. They've grown. They build bridges throughout the state. And the engineer who did the design for this was actually out of New Jersey. It was called Liechtenstein Consulting Engineers. Again, they had experience with this type of rehabilitation and adding these type of cables to old truss bridges to improve the structural integrity of the bridge. Again, very unique. The parts that were used at that time back in 2003 were fabricated specifically for this bridge. And so at that time, in addition to adding the post-tensioning cables to the bridge that are contained in each truss, so each side of the road here has these 3 cables that run down through the bridge. They also painted the bridge.
Yeah.
They added a new wood deck to the bridge. That wood deck was overlaid with asphalt, and then they added the guardrail system, the railing system that you see there. We wanted to beef up the railing system to ensure that no vehicle would come in contact with the truss. So that is a pretty heavy duty rail system. We added approach work, did guardrail, did approach work. We came back into 2022. So as part of the millage, the previous millage, Road Commission had made a commitment to do some repair work and more specifically to repaint this bridge. Because again, in 2022, it had almost been 20 years since we'd worked on the bridge. And a bridge like this, it has a paint coating on it. Over time, that paint wears out. So in 2022, we closed Maple Road. Again, I refer to this as the Maple Road Bridge because technically it's the Maple Road Bridge, but the area commonly refers to it as the Foster Bridge. And Foster Road is just south of Huron River Drive. It's immediately across from the bridge. And so again, in 2022, we undertook the painting of the bridge. At that time, we did not identify these type of structural issues. It really was a new cleaning and coating of the bridge. And we did some approach work to improve the drainage. Because as you can maybe picture in your mind, north of the bridge, there's a very steep hill that comes from Barton Hills, and it comes down and you have a lot of velocity in that water. So we added curb and gutter, we added spillways. We wanted to do a better job of controlling that water as it's trying to get into Barton Pond. So again, a little bit of background from the work that's been done on the bridge during my time here at the Road Commission. This break that occurred, it's going to take time. We do not have a timeline for the repair of this bridge. Nate Murphy has engaged Anlon, the contractor who worked on it 22 years ago. They have revisited the plans from that time. The contractor is reviewing the plans to come up with a list of questions. We also have engaged Great Lakes Engineering, our consultant. Great Lakes does our annual bridge inspections, and they have done them for many years. In particular, the gentleman who works for Great Lakes, Eric, actually has done our inspections even before his time at Great Lakes. So he has a lot of familiarity with this bridge. We have asked them to seek out someone with expertise in this type of a cable system, because it's pretty specialized. And the components are going to have to be ordered and fabricated in order for a repair to occur. But again, we can't reopen the bridge at this time. There is not a quick fix. One of our staff shared with me that there was a rumor floating around on social media that all it would take is a pipe wrench to fix this bridge. That is not the case. This will be a very thoughtful repair that has to be done, because again, those cables add structural integrity to the bridge. They reassure us as engineers that the bridge is safe for motor vehicles.
Right.
When this bridge was built over 120 years ago, they did not have vehicles. They had horse and buggies, and then they had probably Model Ts. The vehicles that are using this bridge now far exceed what the designers and the builders of this bridge would have ever envisioned. And so again, we have to be very thoughtful in the repair to ensure the safety of the motoring public. And so that's kind of.
If I could just add,
Yes,
quick question. So this bridge is on our annual inspection
that's correct.
Yep.
and it was recently inspected as well
In May.
May.
in May. So this was not present during the inspection in May. And this was noticed by, obviously, the general public, which was much appreciated. These historic bridges are like an old house. You're gonna have issues. Ultimately, as Aaron indicated, it's over 100 years old. And ultimately, it's great to preserve them, but they are structures that are fracture proof. Meaning if there were a structural issue, it could catastrophic failure as indicated. So we take these very seriously. And when we see structural elements that are a problem, such as this, we've got to take rapid action, which credit to the team, Nate Murphy, our bridge engineer and operations department. First, and then appropriate detour, because it's going to be a while. And again, these specialized fixtures that need to get fabricated and then installed, we have to find, this is what I consider an emergency repair. So we're gonna figure out how much it's gonna cost and bring that back to the board likely. I have under emergency repairs authorization up to 100,000. We may be nearing that or more. So if that's over that, then we're going to come back to the board. But certainly, time is of the essence. We recognize this is a major impact to the community. And also, I want to make mention, because of the historic nature and because of the structural limitations, what's the posting on this bridge?
20 tons.
So it's 20-ton posting. We don't have weightmasters sitting on that bridge. We rely on the public to adhere to that sign. And sometimes when there's issues on 23, which is adjacent, I suspect that there are those that go over the bridge that are beyond the 20 tons. So when we have issues like this, it's a hard closure.
Did you have a question, Commissioner Green?
Yes. What is the definition of a truss bridge? What makes this a truss bridge per se?
Basically, it's the style of construction that existed in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So a truss describes the components that go together. I compare a bridge like this to an erector set. Basically, that's what this bridge is. It's an erector set where this bridge, a good part of it is raw iron, because at the time that they did bridges back then, they didn't have steel. So they used raw iron. They riveted the bridge together. Since that time and prior to the 2003 rehabilitation, there was another rehabilitation prior to that, and they did add a fair number of like modern steel components to the bridge. So you do lose a little bit of your historic integrity when you start taking old pieces off the bridge and replacing them with modern bridges. But again, this is a truss style of bridge. It's basically a through truss, which means you've got on either side components that are above the deck. So you're driving through the bridge instead of driving over the top of the bridge. Most modern bridges, you're driving over the top of the structural part of the bridge. The beams, the deck, you're on top of them. This one, you're driving on the deck, but the actual structure of the bridge, most of it is up above you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Smers.
Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it's with the post-tensioning type system, it's a push-pull mechanism, am I correct? So if you actually have one cable fail, the other cable also loses tension and some of its strength.
Yeah,
Correct.
yep.
Exchange. Now the other side has a similar situation because now it's being forked.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
so,
Yes.
yeah, so like you said, with the social media saying a pipe wrench, that would be great, but if it's not tensioned properly, that could throw everything off as well and create even more bigger disaster. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we have some pictures that will show the turnbuckle. And, and some of our concern is that this failed on one side of the bridge. There are other components on the other side of the bridge that are very similar in the same age that will have to be replaced with this repair, because if one's failing, the other one is probably pretty close to failing.
And
So-
I'll say, we don't know why it failed.
Yeah.
Like, again, there's a lot of rumors floating around. Well, I got an email from a constituent that said, I heard that a truck went over it. We have no evidence of that. As Matt said, we don't have a weighmaster stationed at this bridge 24/7. We don't know why the cable broke free of its turnbuckle, of its connection point. There was another constituent emailed me and said that on Saturday, there were a bunch of kids there, like a big group of them crawling up on top of the bridge, jumping into Barton Pond. Again, I let her know, I don't think they would have caused something like this, even a really big group of kids. And people have been jumping off this bridge since like the 50s. We actually found a pretty neat picture of people doing just that. So it's been a long tradition of people jumping off.
Not that we
these
encourage.
Not that we condone that.
Encourage
That's
it or
right.
condone it. They shouldn't do it, but again, we do not have law enforcement sitting out there telling people get down off the bridge, so.
So you can see a couple of pictures. So you can see the cable here that's kind of hanging down. And that's probably what the boater or the canoeist or kayaker saw. And that should be under tension. And then again, you can see how the cable slacked there. Again, that should be under tension. And again, this is just a different view of it kind of going down. This is on the east side of the bridge. These are the turnbuckles that tension that cable, and this is the ones that are intact. Again, that cable goes into that turnbuckle, and it's somehow cinched within that buckle, and then you pull the two apart, and that tensions that cable. This is the one that had failed, and you can see from the previous how far spread apart these turnbuckles are. And then this, you can see where it failed, and the turnbuckle is real close together. So that's
We'll certainly continue.
yeah,
to
we'll
work with-
continue to work.
With
yeah.
Tiffany, with the communications team. We now have a project page set up for this. I've been responding, and Nate Murphy has assisted me in responding to many, many constituents. It's understandable those that live north of the bridge now have a challenge. They are using several miles of unpaved county roads to find their way around Barton Pond and the Huron River. So that certainly can be frustrating for those that have become accustomed to just driving across the old Foster Bridge. But again, we'll continue to keep the public updated via the website. Certainly, I'll continue to respond to emails. Nate will assist me with that. But we unfortunately don't have a timeline. As we were able to develop one, working with the consultant engineer, with the contractor, then we'll certainly share that with the public.
Brad, I have a question. Are there public information session ideas,
We do not have anything scheduled as far as public engagement.
just to inform them and
Yeah.
hear from the guy with the monkey wrench? that
Yeah, we're
thinks he could-
responding to emails and responding to Aaron and Nate are responding to those that are coming in. And again, that was one reason to create the project page so that we could have a landing spot and we could put out routine, and Tiffany's bringing that up now, updates for the progress of trying to get this road back open.
And you've been in touch with, isn't there a Barton Hills president, village president?
We've been in touch with that
or
community.
hamlet? I forget what
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
called.
Yep.
The day that we closed it.
It's a village.
one
I
of the,
The
believe.
village?
It
Yeah,
is.
one of the village trustees reached out to me.
Okay.
And he mentioned that, he had a meeting that night. And so I informed him of the situation and he said he would take that to the village board. So
Okay.
they'd be aware. Yeah. And we've been in touch with, Diane at Ann Arbor Township, with Jillian at Scioto Township, because Maple Road is a township line road.
Mhm.
I've spoken with, Ann Arbor Township Fire, Scioto Township Fire. Nate was gonna be reaching out to the city of Ann Arbor Fire because there are certain mutual aid agreements that are in place. We just wanna make sure everyone's aware. And one thing I'll mention before I forget, so the weight limit on the Maple Road Bridge, the Foster Bridge, is 20 tons. East Delhi Road, the Orange Bridge near the Metro Park, is also at 20 tons. We rehabilitated that bridge. I did not work on the project. I would guess that was probably,
18.
yeah,
Been
yeah.
since I've been on the board.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we did rehabilitation on that bridge as well. But we did not add a post-tensioning cable system to that bridge. It was not needed on that bridge because again, the structures have certain differences that, we needed the post-tensioning system on this bridge. It was not needed on East Delhi.
And then I seem to remember that there were plans to do something other than the historic bridge, and the community was resistant
Yeah, that,
to modernizing.
that's correct.
That
Back in 2003, and Aaron can probably speak to that. They did have a plan, I believe, on making the truss bridge a pedestrian bridge, and then had an alternate solution for vehicles, another bridge within the area to provide access across Sharon River.
And didn't the community help with the finances? Do
They
I
did.
remember they were
They did.
involved?
Yeah, so Barton Village receives Michigan transportation
Mm.
funds annually
Mm.
because they have a population, they're an incorporated village.
Got it.
But they don't have any public roads. They're all private roads in Barton Hills.
Mhm.
So they can't spend any of their MTF money on their roads, so they save their money. And so at that point, they had saved money. They requested of MDOT if MDOT would be comfortable with them contributing to the bridge rehabilitation in 2003 because of it being an access point, and MDOT agreed to that. So, and there was, again, we're talking early 2000s, prior to the 2003 rehabilitation, the road commission had received a grant. At the time, it was called the Critical Bridge Program, but essentially it was federal and state funds that could have been used for the construction of a new modern bridge here. But based on interaction with the community and discussions, it was very clear that there was a desire to retain the old bridge and not have a modern bridge built here.
I just heads up at this point in time that there may be an alternative that makes more sense long-term and financially, but I assume all that information will come to the board. I think people need to be prepared to understand that this is an old bridge, people, and it can't take garbage trucks driving over it, school buses
buses,
driving
right.
over it, ambulances or any first responders trying to get from point A to point B. I'm also concerned about the dirt roads that people may be using as detours, that we beef up what kind of maintenance or improvements we're gonna do to those roads, because it'll be dusty and we'll be.
Yeah, they're
hearing from
definitely
people.
seeing more traffic, and yeah, our operations and those districts are aware of
Okay.
that detour, and will be performing maintenance. I'm sure that Adam and his crew and his staff
Okay,
recognize that.
you on it, Adam? Sorry, Brent, don't mean to
Nope,
steal your
you're
thunder
good.
here.
Yeah.
Good morning,
Hi.
Adam Lake, Director of Operations. Yeah, so we actually, engineering's using a closure and a detour setup that we had before. So the foremen are already familiar with that, so they'll just treat it more similar to other projects that we have that use essentially a dirt detour, an unpaved detour. So you see kind of the loop there. So we'll focus on those roads a little bit more and just keep treating them. But Ken made a good note here just a few minutes or a few seconds ago that, we've put some new limestone on areas like Stein Road here recently. So with that too, if people will definitely skip the detour likely and take that left there on Stein Road and take their way back to the west to get back to Joy, just north of there.
Mhm.
So yeah, you'll see a little more traffic in those areas, but we'll be able to manage it. The roads in that area are relatively good shape, good aggregate on them, so we should be pretty good.
Because Joy Road is used a lot and people
Yeah, so
very fast.
yes, correct.
Yeah.
And it a little bit wider, which is a good thing for us, and it's helpful. We've been able to mow some areas back here recently and give us some room for some drainage improvements, but yeah, there'll be extra traffic up there in the next couple of months here.
Okay. Commissioner Green?
Approximately how long do you expect it to be closed?
Again, we don't have a timeline.
Right.
Because we're reaching out to the previous contractor. We have a consultant on board. And we're reviewing those old plans to try and determine how to repair this with what we have, or if we need to recreate additional documentation to assist the contractor with repairing this. So at this moment, we don't have a timeline. But as soon as we do have that, we will share that with the board.
I would anticipate months, not weeks.
Correct.
I'd say months is optimistic.
Agreed. I just want to make sure we're on the same
Yeah.
page as far as.
Something less than 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, and Matt makes a good point, because not only is it working with the engineering consultant,
Mhm.
Great Lakes Engineering, and with the contractor, but if that contractor is gonna perform the work, they have to find the time in their schedule to do so. They're in the throes of their season right now. They're building bridges all over the state.
Yep.
So they have to carve out the crew and the time to come out and actually do the work. And sitting in the middle of June, that can be a tall order.
And does this have any possibility of working with Parks and Recreation to help? You had mentioned making this a pedestrian bridge as opposed to something that's a full service.
Yeah, right now, our plan would be to repair the existing bridge and get that back open for vehicular traffic.
Okay,
Um,
A plan like that would take a lot of coordination, and we would need community support.
Right.
For that kind of endeavor, because we don't want to go about the repeating history, I'll say.
agreed. That was my point in public engagement. Lots of, here's an update, want to reach out.
I think when
answer
we have-
questions, go to their meetings, right?
mhm.
When we have more answers, right now, there's too many unanswered questions to really provide a forum for discussion. Right now, when we get a plan from the contractor, I think that'd be a great time to outline, here's what we need to do. Here's what it's gonna cost, here's the time frame which it's gonna get accomplished. Until then, I think we continue to with the website, emails, and then I like your suggestion, offering to go to any of the township board meetings if we need to provide further explanation.
Just to be present. I mean,
Yeah.
this community is accustomed to having people respond to them. And I think we could be in hot water if we fail to demonstrate, we hear you, we know it's a concern, we know you love your bridge, we want to be helpful. This is not a quick fix.
Right.
What are your questions? What are your concerns?
And I think it's important to outline, the rigorous inspection schedule that we do have.
Yes.
And the investments that have been made, that Aaron, summarized, over the years, since that decision got made. We're gonna go with and keep the historic bridge as our vehicular, way of getting across the river. So these are the
So you're-
downsides.
I'm concerned about making that commitment now when we don't have any idea what the cost of doing this is gonna be.
Sure.
With all the other needs we have countywide.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't keep the historic bridge. I'm just concerned about making a commitment to do that before we even know
Understood.
what the impact is going to be on everything else we're trying to do.
Ultimately, we are working towards providing a solution to the closure, and we are working what that cost is gonna be,
Sure.
and we'll certainly report back.
Commissioner Smers?
I think putting some out there too, to the community to let them know the Band-Aid repair on this is just gonna prolong the catastrophic, much more inconvenience, longer time.
Mhm.
Not discounting how inconvenient it is, looking at the map, the detour and
Yeah.
everything else, it is extremely inconvenient, but much shorter time to do your due diligence now than a Band-Aid repair, get traffic back on there, and then God forbid something more catastrophic happened to it, so they would lose the bridge altogether with it, just a Band-Aid repair possibly. I appreciate the fact that you're trying to find consultants that actually have the expertise to fix this problem. Thank you for that.
Enough said. Yeah. Oh, Commissioner Yamas.
So I just, when I used to work that area, I used to work that area a lot. I know that I saw your detour area and Stein Road, even back when I worked there, was always that dirt road. I can see people taking Whitmore Lake Road to Stein Road to get to where they need to be,
Sure.
on Country Club Drive.
Yeah, and we recognize that there's portions of that Stein Road that's a natural beauty road, and our detour reflects that, the official detour.
The
We
official-
understand that people will find these other routes and,
Yeah.
but we're not encouraging them to. use
Okay.
those.
But ultimately, they're public roads too. So
Correct.
if they choose to use them, there's
Right.
nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Thanks. More to come.
Yeah, more to come.
Next on the agenda, familiar faces, going to provide a construction season update.
All right. Again, Brent Schlack, Director of Engineering. This is the 2025 construction season update. We'll kind of go through, this is our agenda. So we have, you probably saw in your packet, this follows, out of suggestion from Matt, follows our budget. So if you were to look at our budget for our, I don't have the appendix, but this follows that format. So we have our road resurfacing projects, our bridge and culverts, our traffic and safety, non-motorized, that follows that format within our budget documents. So we'll kind of go through all of those, then we'll have Adam come up and talk a little bit about the operations department and our road maintenance and some of his projects. And then we'll get back into some of the scheduling and challenges with that, and then have a Q&A. These are the three presenters. We have Adam, Director of Operations, myself, the Director of Engineering, and Aaron Burkholz, our Assistant Director. This is the overall map of our projects for this year. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can access this through our website. Our website's interactive, and so you can go to our road construction page, and you can click on any of these projects and get more information for those. And we'll kind of break this down as we get into more detail with each one of these the topics of the
These
agenda.
maps
items.
are great.
Mhm.
Oh,
These are being distributed thanks to Tiffany and to Matt and Shelby for making sure I have hard copies. Wherever I go, I put these out and nobody says, may I have one? But suddenly they disappear. People take them with them.
Yep.
So this is really a wonderful resource.
Well, thank you. A big credit goes to our GIS, Alan Squire. He's the one that put these maps together for us.
Man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
He does a great job.
So now we'll get into our road resurfacing projects. So we have, like I've indicated throughout this year, we have a big paving program this year. We're putting in hot mix asphalt resurfacing over 27 miles, approximately 27 miles. Then we have some Adams crews doing a lot of the limestone gravel resurfacing, about 7 miles. And then our seal coat program is approximately 49 miles. And this utilizes a variety of sources of funds, from federal and state fuel taxes to our millage plan, township agreements, and then of course our MTF, Michigan Transportation Funds. So then we'll get into specifics of our projects. Not every project is listed here, but these are just some highlights. 7 Mile Road is one. That one actually is complete. up in Northfield Township. That was a mill and resurface project, part of our millage plan, and that one has been complete. We have a couple projects on Bemis Road one is our unpaved, and I believe, I don't know the status of that one. Want to come up, Adam? And then we have our other paving. We're paving the unpaved portion between Stony Creek and Hitchingham. But the unpaved, I don't know the status of that.
Yeah, good morning again. This is Adam Lape, Director of Operations here still. Bemis Road, the limestone segment, it's actually mostly complete. We have a few touch-up things we want to do drainage wise, but we've got the limestone out there spread. I think on my notes, 11,500 tons that Ken and Jared had the crew get that spread. So we spent quite a bit of time prepping it this spring. Got that material spread out there, so we're doing pretty good in that area.
And the limits of that are Whitaker Road to Rawsonville, between Whitaker and Rawsonville.
The limestone?
The
Yes, ma'am.
limestone resurface.
Sticker to what?
To Rawsonville to the east.
Ah, okay.
Then we have Clark Road, Hero Drive. This is near St. Joe. This is the road kind of changes, the road name changes kind of mid block because of St. Joe. They kind of rerouted where Hero Drive used to come through, and so it's kind of a combination of Clark and Hero Drive within Superior and Ypsilanti Township. Maple Road, this is over by Skyline High School. That project is a mill and resurface. Then we have Nixon Road, which is a federal aid project. This is, we're going to pulverize and pave. This is north of the city of Ann Arbor from M14 to Pontiac Trail. Dexter Pinckney Road. This is actually a two-part project. We have millage funds, and then we have actually federal buyout funds that we're going to be doing on two different segments. Basically, it's from North Territorial to the county line is the complete project with different funding sources. McCullum Road, again, Adam can kind of give an update on, it's a limestone resurfacing project. And later in the program, we'll kind of go through what that looks like in his presentation.
Yeah, so McCollum, we got a little bit of work done there, as with similar to Bemis, limestone getting spread out there and a few drainage items to seal up the project and call it good. But we're moving pretty good through there. That's been kind of helpful this year. And then I'll skip one real quick and go to Walsh Road because I do want to kind of highlight that because that's a combination of township partner, millage, road commission, local road program. So there's kind of three groups and three funds kind of helping us out on that. So that's been kind of a fun project here. So we spoke with the township last fall, and previous supervisor wanted to try to stretch some millage dollars.
Talking Webster or
Yes, ma'am.
Bridgewater?
Yep, Webster. So I'm
Okay,
talking about Webster
okay.
there. Previous supervisor there, John, wanted to,
Yeah.
kind of stretch the millage a little bit. So worked with a couple of his group. And then that administration kind of changed and same concept, wanted to utilize some of the funding on Walsh Road. So we kind of met as a group, came to that agreement. And then also this spring, their new road millage that was passed last fall as
Yep.
well. That new road millage now is also helping us partner within our local road program to spread that stone. So we have the stone spread out there. Most of the drainage is complete. Really just need to do restoration there. And then we're going to take the Township Road Advisory Committee out there and actually show them kind of the site a little bit when it's a little bit safer. We wanted to do it during, and we are going to take them yesterday on Donovan Road, but we figured it's a little bit safer to kind of take our time and get everybody together when there's an equipment out there. Hammer around at the same time. So a little bit off script, but that's kind of one of the cool things we've done. We're really trying to partner and really stretch any funding we can and do as much as we can. So that's, I believe Scully to check my notes. Yeah, Scully and Mass, sorry. We had envisioned kind of get all the way across there. And so it's been a couple of years bringing that together. So that's a pretty good project to get that whole area done at once.
So how do you take them out there? Do they all drive their vehicles and meet you there?
Yeah,
I
most
don't
of the
think
time.
we have a passenger van for such things, right?
No, so our Tahoes are good for that. I've been able to take, for example, Tahoes in our crew cab trucks. I've been able to take Linden Township's group around that are smaller.
Okay,
And I've driven them before. We used to do that historically as well. And Burke used to do that a little bit too when he was with operations. But so what we'll do now is we'll probably have some of them meet and we'll park somewhere and then load some people up between Ken, Jared, their trucks, and then my Tahoe will be able to move most of the people
Okay.
to kind of show them. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Yep.
Then we had Parker Road, this one, we actually had to scale back the scope a little bit, due to what we had found with, the project. It actually goes from Marshall to Shield. We originally had it from Jackson to Shield, but based on the scope and, what we had to change that from a mill and fill to a pulverize and pave. And so we reduced the scope some on that, project. And then Whitmore Lake Road, this is near M14, between M14 Stein. That's another mill and fill type project. There's a few others that, again, we didn't, well, I'll show the map here in a minute on some other projects within state roads. Another one that we're doing that have a mix of federal buyout, millage money. We'll be widening State Road from Campus Parkway to Old State, and then milling between Campus Parkway and US 12. So that'll be a big project for us.
Questions at this point?
You're gonna
Commissioner
be,
Yamas?
I'm sorry, you're gonna be widening State Road from where to where?
Campus Parkway to Old State.
Okay.
It'll go from, it's currently like a mix of 3 to 4 with some auxiliary lanes. It'll go to a 5-lane section
Okay.
between that second.
I have a question.
Mhm.
It seems to me that we're not getting calls about chips, stones, sticking to people's nice clean cars. Have we changed what we're doing with chip seals?
No.
So that it's not, and cyclists used to call all angry that they're sliding all over the place and,
So new machineries helped us a little bit, really haven't changed process.
Huh.
The one thing, Aaron kind of talks about it a lot in a lot of our preseason meetings and some of our construction project meetings with the aggression and the speed that people travel.
yep,
In all honesty, they're blowing any excess chips off the road, and we're
Curious.
minimal sweeping to what it used to be. Now, we still get windshield complaints, because, people feel grieved that, they get chips on the windshield, but unfortunately, people aren't adhering to the recommended 35 mile an hour that we set.
I thought maybe we were rolling it differently now.
No, just
using
our new machinery is a little bit better.
Huh.
So Ken and Jared worked with the group, we have 2 new rollers, so that helps
Yeah.
some, but in all honesty, same process, really same rates, with our new spreaders. The actual aggregate spreader, which we'll kind of show a few pictures of that here in a little bit. We can really trim, the pounds per square foot down a little bit.
Mm.
And so that helps a little bit to where we can put a true 14 to 17 pounds per square yard or square yard, down for us. And so that helps as well. So we don't have excess, but in all honesty, still same process. It just, I'm telling you, the speed of the traffic, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
there are
but
still loose stones and
I
if
see.
people don't adhere to, we do get calls,
Yeah,
Okay.
including my father-in-law. So
yeah.
Oh,
if windows do happen, if you exceed speed limit specifically, so it still happens.
okay. We're just not hearing it.
Yeah.
You're not hearing it at the board level,
Yeah.
you're hearing it at the
And the-
calls.
The physical sticking, like in the tracking and movement,
Yeah.
we don't really have those issues as often now. That really we're trying to practice with our material and kind of
Okay.
keep the providers in check a little bit too, because, this year we've been a little unsatisfied with the material, so we called them to task to improve that, so we don't run across that.
All right.
That's kind of what we don't want, so.
Well, whatever you did, it appears it's not as controversial, but maybe we're just not hearing it.
The finished product looks great, absolutely.
Yeah.
Once we have pulled off the job, but during construction, there are those loose stones, and we do put out the 35 mile an hour advisory speeds for traffic to adhere to, so that to avoid those chip windshields. But overall, it's a fabulous treatment that extends the service life
Yeah.
of our road and protects the investments that we've made, because they're so costly.
Agreed.
So this is what is reported actually in our first quarter budget amendment for 2025. So we have about just over $13 million in our primary road system for paving, which includes a variety of all these chip seal, mill and resurface, gravel resurfacing. So the split between that would be about, for our road projects, For the paved road projects, about 13 million on our primary system, about $750,000 on our local. And then for our gravel, it's about 300,000 for our primary and about 500,000 for our local roads. This will be updated, just to give you kind of a sneak preview for second quarter, because we've gotten a lot of township agreements in. And so this will be updated and these numbers will look a little different. But this is what's reported from our first quarter budget.
What did you say the investment for the local gravel roads was?
About $500,000.
Okay.
And then this is a map of all of our resurfacing projects. This kind of breaks it down into the types of funding that we have throughout the county. So this is a good map, and it does show the investment that we're making and the number of miles that we're paving this year.
Could you go back to the previous slide?
Certainly, Commissioner Green.
Yes, quick question. This order is an order of expense, is that correct? The cheap seal is cheaper than mill and cheaper than gravel road.
Yeah, it is actually.
resurfacing and cheaper than pulverizing.
It was by coincidence, but yeah, it does kind of follow the order where chip seal is our most cost-effective way to maintain and preserve our roads. It's about, I'm gonna throw a number out, but what is it, $60,000 a mile, 40 to 60?
Yeah, depending on the
Yeah.
width, but
Right. Then the mill and resurface, again, we're looking at 250 to 300,000 or more for a mill and resurface. Gravel road, I'd have to ask Adam to come on up, but our pulverize and pave, we're looking at 450 to $600,000 to pulverize and pave a mile of road. So it does kind of fall in that order.
Thank you.
the only caveat is the gravel road resurfacing.
Right.
Depending on the extent of ditching and forestry, it's around 100,000 a mile, roughly. All right, I'm getting that on. So they've trained me well.
Mill and resurface was how much?
It's
250,000
250 is, what we have published.
county road.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
That depends on what we're seeing for cost. It can vary, up to 350,000.
But for planning,
For planning purposes, yeah, we use 250. Again, this is the map. And then I'll pass it over to Aaron. He can kind of go through our bridge and culverts.
Aaron Burkholz, Assistant Director of Engineering with the Road Commission. Again, we talked a little bit earlier in the meeting about the Maple Road, the Foster Bridge. But overall, we have jurisdiction over 125 bridges countywide. And so again, those are federally listed bridge structures. The way in which a bridge is defined is it has to be a minimum of a 20-foot span. So from side to side, if you will, if you were looking at the bridge and standing at its side and looking from one foundation support to the other, that would have to be a minimum of 20 feet. And so if it's 20 feet or more, it's a federally listed bridge structure. If it's less than 20 feet, that is still a structure. We still have to maintain and inspect those, but the burden is completely on the Road Commission. The feds are not involved in that. So the federally listed bridges, these 125 bridges countywide, are inspected a minimum of every 2 years. Again, that's federal and MDOT mandate. We have to inspect them at least every 2 years. And if a bridge falls into disrepair, if it becomes structurally questionable, it gets a weight limit, a weight posting on it, we have to inspect it more frequently. So again, reflecting back on the Foster Bridge, that one is inspected every year because that one, again, it has a 20-ton weight limit. The same would hold true with the East Delhi Bridge. That's got a 20-ton weight limit. Bridges with weight limits generally are inspected every year. If the weight limit gets too severe, you start to inspect them every 6 months. So again, there's a great effort put forth by the Road Commission and our engineering consultant who's worked with us for many years to conduct those inspections. We have to report those inspections to MDOT, who in turn refers those to Federal Highway. So all parties are kept informed on the bridges. And here's a picture of the Maple Road Bridge. Again, earlier in the meeting, we went through that extensively. We talked about the condition, why it's closed, and the potential repairs that may be needed at some point in the future here. And so again, anything that would have a span less than 20 feet would be a culvert. Now, some culverts that we refer to have a bridge type structure. But again, if they are under 20-foot span, they all go into the category of culverts. We refer to those as culverts. We own about 2,800 culverts throughout the county. And they're of various sizes, various materials, various conditions. We've inspected the larger structures at least every 4 years. And so from earlier in my career to now, credit to all those here at the Road Commission that have worked on that, the budget that has been approved by the board to undertake that rigorous inspection of these culverts. Because I will admit that early in my career, it was basically we would respond to a culvert when there was an issue, when there was a hole in the road, or heaven forbid, when a culvert collapsed. We would address it at that time. It was more reactive. We're trying now to be more proactive, where we're inspecting these. We basically go down to about a size of a 5-foot span structure. And that's kind of our target. Anything that has a 5-foot span or greater up to just less than 20 feet, we're out there inspecting those every 4 years. That's not to say that we don't sometimes discover culverts that we were not aware of, because again, there are thousands of these structures out there on the county roads. So I also want to thank the operations department, the district foreman, Adam and Ken and Jared have done a great job partnering with engineering to help us identify these culverts that need work. And really, they are out on these roads on a daily basis. And sometimes it becomes readily apparent that there's a culvert issue. So we appreciate their partnership in that.
And just to put it in perspective, 125 bridges, the culverts that range from 5 foot to 20 foot, there's 342 culverts. And those are all on the inspection cycle.
Yes.
And if they're in poor condition, we look at them more frequently, much
Commissioner
like the
Green.
bridges.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you. So the Foster Road Bridge is actually owned by the Road Commission, correct?
We own it. It belongs to us.
So I thought I heard something about the township residents did not want a new bridge.
That's
Who
correct.
makes that decision, us or them?
At the time, the Road Commission Board made that decision to not pursue the replacement of that bridge. So ultimately, it is this Road Commission that has the authority to decide things like that. For the Maple Road, the Foster Bridge, there was a great deal of call by the community to retain the old historic bridge and to not build a new one. And again, at that time, we're looking back at probably between 2000 and 2002, the Road Commission Board at that time decided to not pursue the construction of a new bridge and turned federal aid funding back into the state. Because actually that bridge had been identified for a new bridge. Now what they call that program, MDOT refers to it as the local bridge program. At the time, it was called the critical bridge program. But again, we had had that bridge selected through a competitive grant for a new bridge to be built. The community was very clear they did not want a new bridge. They wanted the old bridge to remain and to remain as the only bridge crossing that part of Barton Pond. And so there was a decision by the Road Commission Board at that time to turn the federal money back in.
And I will add that I would imagine not only the historical aspect, but the additional volume of traffic that would bring both passenger and commercial traffic on a new bridge unrestricted to that area. So if you build it, they will come, meaning volume, traffic. So it's not only historical element that they want to retain, but they don't necessarily want the additional traffic volumes.
But the ultimate decision is ours.
Correct. And at that time, the board elected to turn it back.
Now, if that bridge had have collapsed, that would have been our liability.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's why we take the inspection very seriously. That is our charge, to have a safe and convenient travel for our road network and bridges. So that is absolutely our responsibility.
So the decision to build a new bridge versus maintaining the old bridge, there's some safety concerns that are our responsibility,
Correct.
correct?
Yes. It's much like I referred to it previously, owning an old house, an old historic farmhouse versus building a new house.
Right.
You're always going to be working on the old historic farmhouse. And it's never going to be as efficient or structurally sound as a brand new house.
That's right. Okay.
Yep.
Other questions? Commissioner Yamas?
So there will be no federal or state funds that we can look to help with this bridge. So the onus will be all on us. The cost will be all on us.
We
Correct.
don't know at this point.
Well,
We don't know the cost. We don't have the proposals for fixes, alternatives. We're on hold until we have more information. That's the way I'm feeling.
agreed, but I feel like there's a reason why we have a fund balance. These are the reasons we have a fund balance, whether it's severe weather, whether we have a failure of an asset. That's the recommendation that will come forth is here's what it will take to repair this existing structure. And we'll make that recommendation. If it most likely, it will likely be above $100,000. So it's got to come back to this board for that.
Commissioner Smers?
I just feel it needs to go on record. At the time that the decision was made, I'm sure the board, the staff felt that was the right decision at the time. Here we are 20 years later, second guessing it. At the time, I'm sure they felt that was what the community wanted. You know, so it is easy to say, well, they should have, but they didn't know. So I think getting the right information moving
Right.
forward is what we need to do.
I don't think we're second guessing or criticizing what was done before. It's just where are we now and what do we need to do and what information do we need to make a responsible decision?
Yeah, and it's important to understand the history as we're getting inquiries from the public.
The
To
public
make,
is what I'm thinking about because
Yep.
I can see somebody, again, social media keyboard warrior,
Oh, yeah.
you know, second guessing. At the time, they felt that was the right decision.
And that was 22 years ago. So, yeah. Returning to the culvert discussion, some of the culvert replacements, that we've been working engineering to end operations, working together on these. Again, credit to, the Board of Commissioners, the County Board, as they allocated $2 million to, the Water Resources Commission, and then Water Resources had a competitive grant program, the Stormwater Grant, and that allowed the townships to realize funding so that they could partner with the road commission to replace many local county road culverts. So that's been of great help. So some of the culverts that are listed here they benefited from that stormwater grant program through the Water Resources Commission. So the Arcona Road culvert, the Conway Road culvert, and on the next page is the Oak Valley Drive culvert. So I wanted to highlight those in particular because those three actually used a unique liner type system.
Name
So-
them again, Arcona Road.
So Arcona Road, Conway Road
Yep,
in Sylvan Township, and Oak Valley Drive in Pittsfield
Okay.
Township. So again, those three culverts out of this list were actually lined. And that was a new method that we worked with a contractor on. And basically, based on the challenges that existed with a more standard removal and replacement, the lining allowed us to retain the existing structure, but create a new structure within the existing one. So as those culverts deteriorate, which would now be the outside of the liner becomes the new culvert. It is structurally capable of carrying full loads. So it was really neat. And specifically, I'd like to mention Ken Harris, our superintendent of maintenance, sought out that type of technology.
thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thanks. And it was really interesting, to see that contractor perform that work. Again, cost wise, it's very similar to the cost for removal and replacement. And still a fairly new, at least in the state of Michigan, a fairly new method of, improving culvert crossings. The one other I'll mention here on this list is Warren Road in Ann Arbor Township. So Warren Road, it's on Warren Road just west of Dixboro Road. And the existing culvert there has a 20-ton weight limit. That one did receive stormwater grant funding. We were able to partner with Ann Arbor Township, and the advertisement for that replacement is going out today. So we're actually gonna have a contractor replace that one. It will be a sizable culvert. The existing culvert, I want to say, just testing my memory, is roughly a 12.5 foot span culvert. The new culvert will be a 20-foot 1-inch span. So the new culvert will fall into a bridge category. It will go on the federal list of bridges. So we are going to build one more bridge. So the total number of county bridges will go from 125 to 126. The reason that span of that bridge structure needs to increase is to accommodate the the flow of that stream that goes through. This stream that goes through it is a tributary to Fleming Creek. It goes from north to south. It crosses under Warren Road and then under Dixboro Road. Both of those structures look very similar in size. They both look pretty similar as far as era, like when they were installed. So I refer to those two culverts as sister culverts. We, in the relative near term, the next few years, are going to have to address the one on Dixboro Road. Because again, since both of these structures, I think, went in at about the same time, you can imagine they're both in about the same condition. The one on Dixboro, for whatever reason, is in a little bit better condition than the one on Warren. But the first one we're going to tackle this year is the Warren Road culvert. We have reached out to Diane O'Connell at Ann Arbor Township. She's aware of the fact that we're getting ready to advertise this project. Both the township board and this board approved the agreement based on the costs that we are going to incur, both parties, along with the stormwater grant that the township received. Again, we'll look forward here in about 3 weeks to opening bids and seeing what those bids are and who the contractor is going to be.
And Aaron, the size of that span was dictated by the Eagle permit.
Eagle evaluates the bank full width of the stream. It is not uncommon for culverts that were installed decades ago to be undersized. They, at that time, had a different way of evaluating the bank full width and the stream needs. Certainly in modern times, 9 times out of 10, when Eagle looks at a culvert, they want a bigger culvert. And you have to have the permit from Eagle in order for us to do the work.
And that does make sense in regard to the frequency and intensity of our storms that we're seeing. You need to accommodate a larger span because of the water flow. So that does, in a lot of ways, protects our road as well, because if it were to get a large storm and a lot of runoff, if undersized culverts can fail, and that failure can just take the whole culvert with it. We've had cases where that would be true. So we want to size it very much appropriately, and that is a whole process. And it took a little while to get an Eagle permit, but kudos to you guys for getting that one.
Commissioner McCollum, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Aaron, for the, going back to Arcona, Conway and Oak Valley Drive, the lining that you use, is that going to be typical, or is just specific types of culverts you're going to use that for?
It would be specific. And in fact, I've got a picture here. And so Arcona Road down in Saline Township, this one, the depth of this culvert, and the fact that we had installed new guardrail on top of this culvert in fairly recent history. We did not want to pull new guardrail out, pretty new guardrail, to then dig a big hole in the ground, a very deep hole, to replace this culvert. So by lining it, we were able to retain the guardrail. It really minimizes the disturbance as well. It shortens the construction time frame. So really, they completed this culvert lining project in like 2 days. Is that correct, Mr. Harris? Yeah, so 2 days they completed this. So depth would be one thing. The one on Conway Road, Conway is unique, because it's a dead end road. And so it comes off of Bush Road going north. It's a dead end road. And so for the houses that are on the other side of the culvert to close the road and dig a big hole in the road and tell people, well, you can't get in and out for a few days, it's not workable. You have to have a way, because heaven forbid there be some type of an emergency during that time, and you have to get emergency vehicles north of the culvert. So again, by retaining the existing culvert on Conway Road and lining it in the course of one day, we were able to maintain traffic and ensure that people could get in and out.
And they expressed their gratitude, I assume?
I think so. Mr. Harris, did you hear?
They had no idea, right?
They did know we were there.
Right.
And I was surprised at the volume of traffic, because again, there's maybe a dozen houses north of the culvert. I might be generous saying a dozen. There was a lot of traffic back and forth, but anyway, and this was the last
You
one.
want to bring up Arcona on, the
Oh,
size
yeah.
of that?
Yeah, sure.
Which one's becoming a bridge? Which one's graduating?
That's Warren
Warren
Road.
Road.
So Warren Road is a
Okay.
complete replacement.
Got it.
That one's going to become a bridge.
That'll be a full closure.
And that'll be a full closure, and it's going to be a closure for quite some period of time.
Thank you for
So,
letting the supervisor in Ann Arbor Township
Of
know
course.
about all of this.
Yep.
Commissioner Green and then Commissioner Yamas?
And it's also my understanding that there's no federal money for culvert replacement. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the only money we would be able to use for federal aid funds for a culvert replacement would be our like urban funding or our rural funding. You could target that more general funding for a culvert replacement. We did that years ago. I think it was in 2019. We replaced a culvert structure on Kavanaugh Lake Road, just west of the city limits of Chelsea. And that one we targeted those what was it, STU funding?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Urban.
basically urban funding. The issue, yeah, the issue with that is that we can resurface a great deal of road with those type of funds. When you replace a culvert structure, it's a point. And so that's a difficult decision to make, to say, okay, we're going to forego resurfacing what could be several miles of road. And instead, we're going to put all that money in this one spot where there's a culvert. So I'll say that's a rare thing. In my career, the only time I remember us using those type of funds to replace a culvert was in 2019 on Kavanaugh Lake Road. So beyond that, there is no federal aid funding available for culvert replacements, particularly on local county roads. In general, local county roads are non-federal aid eligible. And the vast majority of the culvert needs we have out there are on those non-federal aid eligible roads.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yamas?
So I'm, just a question about the picture, the Conway Road minimized closure because of the lining, but what about what looks like wings coming out? Looks like they're deteriorated on the bottom. Does
Yeah.
that not have to be repaired?
It doesn't really, go ahead, sir. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so yes, what Aaron was starting to say, it doesn't really have to be repaired, but what we can do as part of our structure maintenance, we can go back with our crew that we use a vendor for foam spraying.
Okay.
So in theory, we could basically stabilize that and then foam spray it to, prevent that washing behind it. But yeah, so there's kind of some future to that Ken and Jared will kind of go back out and touch areas like this. So still ways that we can repair that, or you could even just excavate a little bit and pop that off, and you could actually slide another one on, because if you look in the top right of the photo, there's a little bit of almost like a cable.
Yeah.
That's the tensioning piece where you can tension those, so you can loosen them and kind of pull them off and basically forcefully push another one in there and then tension it back around it.
Yeah,
Those are
because
considered just spillway wings.
will that eventually create an issue if it's not repaired?
Not ideal, but as you can see, it's pretty straight flow through, so there shouldn't be a lot of water, smashing into the sides of that. But obviously, it's been there for a long time, so I think just degraded over time.
Yeah, because it appears the water is
It's fine.
just passed
Yeah,
underneath there as
Yeah,
that
'cause you
gets
can see that
wider,
water.
continues to flow. Okay,
so not perfect, but it's something that we can do without closing the road, kind of do with a couple guys and have no issue.
Other
thanks.
questions? No?
The Arcona Road, and I'm glad Brent mentioned it. The Arcona Road culvert is the largest liner in North America. So the contractor that performed the work informed us of that. So just kind of a neat fact, if you will, that now is the largest liner in North America.
Wow.
And here's a picture of the inside of Oak Valley Drive. And again, Oak Valley, one of the biggest concerns out there was underground utilities. Oak Valley Drive, this culvert was quite long. There's not only is it a busy road, but you got curb and gutter, you got sidewalk, you've got underground utilities. Again, if you go with the more traditional method, remove and replace, you're digging a big hole, you have to get all the utilities moved out of the way. And then once you put it back together, you have to bring a contractor in to do the curb, you have to repave the road. And it just results in a longer term type project. Again, this was completed in a day. So really an interesting material and something we would consider.
Aaron, one of the advantages is it's using the existing culvert as essentially to cast that liner. Yeah, it's the mold, and it has its own structural strength itself, and it can ultimately doesn't need that old pipe for any structural elements. And so if you've got joint issues like this particular culvert, you can see in the distance, there's a offset joint. You can go right through that and you have no structural issues, and you're no longer taking any material and creating voids. So this is a very good method for addressing things like that without having to dig up and impact utilities as well, because that's I'm sure very full of fiber optic and whatnot. So
One thing to note on there, we have a little typo. It's not 12 foot in length, it's 120 feet.
Oh, I was going to say, well, that doesn't seem very
120 feet.
record breaking to me. Commissioner Smurf, just a minute, Commissioner
Yeah.
Smurfs.
So, with it being structurally sound, when this is starting to deteriorate, could you add another of the same thing, or is this kind of a one and done, can't redo it, or you might be able to add the same thing again in the future?
Yeah, it's a one and done because that existing liner will last so long. The type of material that's being used has a much greater longevity than the old steel pipe did. So as that old steel pipe continues to deteriorate around the liner, that liner is going to far exceed the life of the old steel pipe. So I think you probably could line it again, but again, that's going to come many, many years in the future.
The manufacturer is giving us like 100-year.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
So are they,
it'll
right?
outlast the world.
You're right, too.
Little while. Okay, that answers my question.
Right.
And ultimately, when we do the road, oftentimes we're checking the condition of all the underground. So a 20-year life of the road, you're going to have 5 road reconstructs in the life of the span of this liner, which is amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, so the material, the other ones were metal or whatever. This is made out of, what's this material, the liner?
Yeah, the liner is, Mr. Harris.
Is it a PVC pipe?
Yeah,
It's like polyurea, and then it has epoxy that, so whenever they construct this, it's like a sock that they're pushing through the culvert, and then they're running a light train through it to cure that
Well, look,
epoxy.
the salary of Congress has been.
Sorry.
So what, I'm not familiar, what is that? Is that type of material in layman's term? What
It'd
is
be
it?
similar,
Plastic.
like a plastic.
Like a
That's what I was
plastic,
thinking.
yeah.
Plastic, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this plastic is gonna last 100 years?
Mhm.
Wow.
So check back in, Joanne.
Sure.
It's PVC free, right?
Yes.
That's what I
Think.
think.
That's
what I'm
environmentally friendly.
And
Okay.
the contractor was very clear on that this
Okay.
is like environmentally friendly material that, right, it's
Inert.
inert, thanks, yeah.
Thank you.
What are the project limits on that Oak Valley Drive? Where is?
It's just north of Ellsworth, so between Ellsworth and
Okay.
Ranchero.
Ranchero.
Yeah.
That
in
corporate
Pittsfield
park.
Township.
And you can imagine in that's a business park, and it's got curb and gutter and
Yeah,
sidewalk. So to remove that existing culvert, there's a lot of expense additional to excavating all that. So to do a liner, and particularly one that has the longevity of this, was a good choice.
nice. Mr. Lake.
Yeah, actually, to Brent's note, we kind of noted the trenchless excavation a little bit easier, like he's kind of talking right now. So if some of you recall, probably 4 years ago, I think, Ken had a deal, and Ken can even talk better on this if you want to come up too, Ken. We had to, when we both were superintendents, we had to do, Ranchero
Yeah.
Drive, just basically north and west of there.
Mhm.
And that was a utility nightmare, sidewalk nightmare. I mean, it was quite the hole physically, and just the utilities were a nightmare for us to get located and figure out what we're doing. And so this is so much better because at the same time, we started looking at this Oak Valley Road, or this drive one, so that's 2 foremans ago that we've been kind of eyeballing this. And so to be able to slide something through there and not have to work through those utilities again, it was close to a nightmare with Ranchero, and the closure in there was impactful, even though there's just a half mile, to go around, but a lot of traffic. I don't know, Ken, if.
Home run, Mr. Harris.
Yeah, we both lived that one.
Identify yourself, please.
Yeah, Ken Harris, Superintendent of Maintenance. As Adam had talked about, in particular, this Oak Valley one, it only took 1 day for him to do it. It was a long day, but the delivery of it, the process, it was a very smooth process for it. Actually, when they ended up cleaning the structure, we found a fiber optic line that was going through the bottom of the culvert, straight through it. So they were able to put some sandbags next to it, and we just pulled the liner right over it. So if we were to excavate it ourselves, there was potential we probably could have snagged that line, because it was at the bottom of the culvert. But that came up after the inspection of it, and we were able to still move with the liner through it.
Obviously permitted or not permitted.
Certainly not to the depth that we would desire.
Exactly, right.
That's probably a good answer.
Yeah.
But that's the flexibility of this.
Yeah, the UV cure process is really interesting. On Arcona, they were curing at 4 inches a minute on that structure. So it took them several hours to cure that culvert. This one probably, I think that took 3 hours to cure. They take the light train through, and they only go 1 time through it. So slow process once you start curing it, but once it's done, it's a very hard material once it's completed.
I assume this is all patented and protected.
Yeah, they are.
Material.
Honestly, they are sole source. You'll actually see some of that.
Who is it?
Well, I can't even pronounce the name.
Well, PowerVac,
Yeah,
they've worked with Omega liners.
Yeah.
There was individuals from New Jersey and Virginia that were out working on the process because of the complexity, especially the Arcona one, the size. Arcona was a transition liner, went from 72 inches to 76.
Huh.
So that was the little bit of the hiccup on that one. That's why that 76 portion of it is the largest part in the United States. Right now, they have capacity to do 84-inch now. So we had to do a liner up to 84 inches, but the liner itself was about a 16,000-pound liner that they had. They worked with Brewers and Manchester Towing to set the box in the hole, and then worked with the towing company to pull the liner through.
You got a movie of this, people?
We got
Somebody-
some videos.
We do have
have
some videos, yeah.
And then there's some information you'll see in the board packet as well, if you want to kind of research the actual company. that
Okay.
actually provides that.
We did a lunch and learn with them in the wintertime. And once the lunch and learn happened, we decided to move forward with getting some quotes, and the quotes were comparable to the prices that we had to complete it ourselves. And within a week, they completed 3 liners. It will remove the weight restrictions that we had on Conway. It will take it back to no restrictions needed.
And how did you find these people?
We've worked with individuals like this, and some of our SAM conferences, we come across vendors. And so just a youth of knowledge and those seminars and stuff. So we've been able to reach out to them and took a chance.
So hopefully the
So
science,
we've nerded out for the morning, haven't we? Right?
hopefully that science keeps
See
going.
what you've done to us?
Yeah, that science keeps going. Hopefully that might help us on a Dixboro or something like that, just talking about the Warren Road and Dixboro, these are
Yeah.
massive culverts that renting a crane is much easier than digging a massive hole in
Yeah.
Dixboro Road.
Yeah.
Reality isn't there yet for us, but over time they seem motivated, and I think it's gonna catch on a little bit. And with having a sole source vendor for it right now and company using it, it helps us because we know only the best that way. And so we're not, trying to look between 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 contractors. I'm not sure if this one's good.
Yeah.
Maybe not efficient or good in one spot and not good in the other. So right now, it's safe enough for us to use when we really need to keep a road open, so to speak.
Fascinating.
And we were able, for us, our own resources to do it probably would have been 3 to 4 weeks to do all 3 of those projects. So to be able to do them all in a week was very beneficial to our own crews. We were able to do other projects throughout.
Ha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
So here's our countywide culvert map. So again, these are the culverts that are planned for this season for 2025. And some of those projects have already been completed. I mentioned those. The liners have been completed. Some of the other ones that are more traditional, remove and replace, have been completed as well. But overall, this is the plan for this season. And then looking at the budget, we've got about $900,000 that we'll be putting into the primary road system. And then about 400,000 for the local roads. So again, that'd be a combination of bridge work and culvert work. And then we mentioned storm structure maintenance there. And primarily through the diligent work of the operations department, they have undertaken a great deal of storm structure cleaning and televising to try to maintain those stormwater conveyances in our more residential type neighborhoods, our more urban type neighborhoods where there's curb and gutter. So I'll turn it back over to Brent. He's going to talk a little bit about our traffic and safety projects.
Thanks, Aaron.
Does anybody need a break?
Yeah, we can.
At this for a bit? Wanna
Man,
take a
can I
break?
get some coffee?
Would that be all right, John?
That's fine, yes.
10-minute break, come back at 10:30?
Great.
Nope.
Yep.
Welcome back. We'll reconvene here and pick up with traffic and safety projects. Mr. Schlack, ball to you.
Thank you, Brent Shellac, Director of Engineering. So we'll go into traffic and safety projects, but I want to note some of the budget slides that we have. That's our overall budget within our, so that includes, there may be some design work that aren't included within this construction season. So just to make that note, whenever you're looking, if you're comparing the slide that we have for our budget compared to what we actually have within Appendix I. It's the overall cost
Okay,
that was included.
so it's inclusive of things that might not be reflected in the
Correct.
current, okay.
Okay, so we have some new signals that we'll be installing, of course, upgrading and then some flashing beacons. Again, there's a variety of sources of funding. We have some federal funds that we'll be utilizing for these improvements. Of course, our millage and then township agreements. And actually, we have an agreement with the city of Saline as well. So our new signals that we're looking at, we have Parker and Shield. This is a carbon reduction funds that we received. This project was bid out. It's actually in the July bid letting that will construct a new traffic signal at this intersection. The intersection currently has center left turn lanes, so it'll be adding the box span type signal to that intersection.
So will that talk to all the signals going towards the city of Dexter then?
This one is just on the west side of the high school.
Oh,
And-
that one, okay, okay.
Correct. So it won't necessarily talk to adjacent intersections.
Mhm.
So there's really nothing adjacent, but we will have communication to this intersection to be able to monitor and respond to any type of after hours issues that may happen with the intersection. 6 Mile and Curry, it's an overhead flashing beacon that was installed in May in Salem Township. We also had an agreement with Ypsilanti and Augusta Township for Bemis and Marlowe. That was to put a rapid flashing beacon, an RRFB, on Bemis Road near the Green Farms subdivision that would cross over Bemis Road to the Lincoln School District. And that project was completed this past May. We also have a large modernization project. It's through our congestion mitigation air quality funds that we received. There's like 30 signals within Ann Arbor, Pittsfield, Superior, and Ypsilanti townships that will get modernized to include new equipment for our signal system, our advanced traffic management system.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
So what is that
So it'll include
difference between,
it'll include updated cabinets, controllers, vehicle detection, at these intersections to, help keep that equipment up to date and to help us when we're monitoring for different traffic patterns.
So these become smarter?
They do, a lot of these intersections.
Graduate?
A lot of these intersections already are smart where we can communicate with them, but it's just modernizing that equipment over time that ages. The vehicle detection that we use have batteries in them, and so those batteries degrade over time. And so it'll be a replacement of a lot of that equipment.
Okay.
And I'll add that, keep in mind, these are out in the elements through winter, summer,
Right,
even though the cabinets are somewhat cooled, but they degrade.
Sure.
And anything with electronic components, it does need replacing. The public generally won't notice a difference, so to speak. So it's a lot of behind the scenes. Ultimately, the traffic signals will look very much like they do now. But you'll see crews on the side of the road replacing those components that Brent mentioned. So it's great to take advantage of these federal funds.
Correct.
Because if we didn't do that, then they'd come out of our MTF revenues.
So this is CMAQ money?
Yep, it's congestion mitigation air quality, which is 100% federal dollars.
Did we put it in the bank yet?
So it's a reimbursement program, just like all our federal aid.
Yeah, we don't actually get the funds. We'll bid the contract through MDOT. Then through the MDOT contract, those funds are distributed to the contractor.
Okay.
They are obligated.
Obligated, yeah, we've obligated.
Funds are obligated, and
And it's been awarded.
it's been awarded
Yeah,
already.
It's
So
already been
that's-
bid and awarded. We did have a carryover from our 24 CMAQ project, which was along Ann Arbor Saline Road, between Maple and, I-94. Maple Road between Ann Arbor Saline and US 12. So the contractor is finishing that project, which also includes work within the city of Saline. And that's where they'll be installing a new traffic signal there at the middle school on Maple Road, part of that contract. And so they'll be out there, they're actually out there now trying to finish that, and then they'll move over to this 25 CMAQ project.
My concern is that we get our reimbursement ASAP.
Yeah, those funds have already been obligated, so they're already in the works for once we do those project estimates and
Okay.
get that contractor paid.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Yamas.
Just the previous page on Bemis Road and Marlow
Oh.
Road, you said it's a rectangular flashing beacon. What does that mean? It's flashing what?
So it's they're rectangular, so it's a light bar and they rapidly flash. We have them in several locations. There's one on Textile Road that would be just east of Lower Road. There's several along Lower Road.
Pedestrian.
I-
Pedestrian
Okay.
crossings.
So I'm asking, what do they flash? So it's the pedestrian.
Yeah, so
crossing.
the
Yeah, okay.
pedestrian, yeah, it's for a pedestrian crossing.
So they hit the
Okay.
button and the,
Yep, and then they rapidly flash. One thing to note is they're a warning device, so technically they don't stop vehicles unless a pedestrian is within the crosswalk, then that vehicle by law is supposed to stop.
Okay,
So the device itself is not technically indicated. There's several to stop vehicles. There are several people that do, and that's good, but technically it's a warning device.
okay,
It's an enhancement to the existing signing.
okay.
So there's already a crosswalk there.
Correct.
And there was already signing there, so this was an enhancement desired by the community.
Because it goes beyond, right? Because we had one fatality last year, I believe, at a crossing like this, but it was not rapid. Didn't have.
That
a
a signalized crossing.
That was at a signal.
So that was a traffic signal. This is what we call a mid-block crossing.
I think it was on
Packard and,
Hewitt.
I'm not aware of that one. Packard and
Carpenter.
Carpenter is the
Carpenter.
one
Oh,
that
it's the
comes to
recent
mind
Yeah.
most recently,
and they walked against the signal, as I recall.
it's our understanding.
That's our understanding as well. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We also have guardrail upgrade projects that will be either repairing guardrail or installing new or modernizing that guardrail again over time. That guardrail, that equipment needs to be modernized to have the proper endings put on. So we have a project that includes those upgrades. We also have our traffic calming, our neighborhood traffic management program. Right now, Foster Ave is, it's actually under construction right now. That one had gone through all the criteria and met the requirements for that program. And we have a contractor out there constructing that. We have several others that are in the middle of collecting signatures to complete that traffic calming process that potentially could be added later in the season. But Foster is the one, and half of that roadway has been constructed. And so they're waiting for that concrete to cure. And then they'll switch traffic onto the new humps and then construct the other half. So that's where that project's at. We're looking at later this week for that project. One thing to note, we do these in concrete, our traffic calming devices. We found that the longevity of that device is certainly there, and that to be able to form and finish that concrete to the requirements that we have for the speed hump is a lot easier than to do those in HMA or hot mix asphalt. Pavement markings, that's also kind of a construction project. So within that project budget. We'll be completing about 6 million feet of long line pavement marking. That's white and yellow. That would be for our chip seal roads, some of our millage paved roads. And then we have a retrace program as well. This also includes any of the special markings, which would be the stop bars, turn arrows, or railroad crossings. That's all included within that program. So with that's the contract. Truck.
Oh, okay,
That is not our truck.
okay. Gonna say, that's huge.
So again, to note, this is the overall budget within traffic and safety. This does include some design or non-motorized component, or I guess it would not non-motorized because that's the next section. But it does include some design. But this includes pavement marking, guardrail, our traffic calming, our signal modernization projects, and some safety projects. We do have some safety projects where we're looking to put in center line rumbles, and these projects all include those.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, Brent, now the budget for this, like the traffic calming, isn't that part of township?
That's part of the local agreement for the traffic calming, correct?
So is that included in here?
That's included in
Okay.
here. Yes, that would be on the local portion.
Okay, local roads, 250, okay.
Yep. And then I'll turn it back, unless there's any other questions, I'll turn it back over to Aaron, who'll kind of go through our non-motorized projects.
Any other questions for Brent on this? No? Okay,
Aaron Burkholz, Assistant Director of Engineering. And again, we'll just touch briefly on some non-motorized projects for the upcoming season. We've got two, the Gettys Road Pathway. So again, this is like a connector in Superior Township. It would be located east of Prospect Road over near Harris Road. There's a portion of pathway that had not been constructed in the past because oftentimes in the past, through township approval, as developments are going in, they have them build a pathway, and you end up with individual segments of pathway over time that are different ages, and sometimes those don't necessarily connect. So Superior Township, working with the Road Commission, was able to secure TAP funding. TAP funding is the Transportation Alternatives Program, federal aid funding to pursue that Gettys Road Pathway, that connector. So they're working on that project right now. And then the other project that we've been working with Superior Township on is the ADA, so Americans with Disabilities Act, essentially sidewalk ramp upgrades that would occur throughout the township. But we are at the point where right-of-way, there was an identified right-of-way need at some of those locations. So that work is now beginning to be able to secure the right-of-way. That's a requirement of the federal aid process. We have to be able to show that all the right-of-way is in hand before we can actually submit it to MDOT and have the project advertised and bid. So the ADA project would come at some point, maybe later this year, but it does depend on when that right-of-way is secured. It depends on individual property owners and discussions with those owners. Sometimes that can be variable. And again, then we would need to get into an MDOT bid letting. They would have to identify when the project would be open for bid. So the budget reflects $1.7 million in primary road on non-motorized projects and 600,000 approximately in local road non-motorized projects. And again, what would be included in that would be local agreements with Superior Township, that basically they're going to be bearing the cost for any match that's on the federal aid. So federal aid projects, typically there is a match, a local match that has to be provided. The township would pay that. They would pay for any right-of-way costs that would be incurred. And then they also pay for any type of design or construction cost. So as you have a company working on the design of the project, or you have an inspector or a materials tester on site when the project's being constructed, the township would bear that cost.
Commissioner Yamas.
So I have a couple of questions as you.
Yes.
So you said TAP money and you gave, what are there, all I got was transportational.
Oh, sure. Transportation Alternatives Program
Okay,
is what TAP stands for. Yep. And
And-
oftentimes that'll be used by townships, Washtenaw County Parks. They pursue that type of funding for non-motorized.
okay. And the other thing was the Geddes Road pathway is between where and where?
It would be, basically it's, east of Prospect. So if you go east of Prospect Road and then more towards Harris Road,
Okay,
that's where this segment of, like, I'll say connector pathway is being constructed.
yeah, I can imagine that spot. The other question was, so the ADA is on that same project?
No, that is a separate project.
So that'll be a separate
Yeah,
project and you don't
that's
know where
separate.
that will be yet?
No, because
Okay.
again, that one, it's a township-wide sidewalk ramp improvement program.
Okay,
And so, there were certain locations where there's a right-of-way need. So after the right-of-way's been secured, then they would be able to take the step of making final submittal to MDOT and getting a bid date identified.
okay. And I have one more question. So they hire all the designers. We don't have to, we don't design any of that stuff. They don't use the
That's
road commission
correct.
for that.
Right.
Yeah, it depends on the township agreement. So the agreement will state, that we may manage the design process and the reimbursements, or the township may hire. It just depends on the project.
Okay, so they,
All outlined in the agreement that comes to the board that we all
okay,
sign off on.
all
And
right.
it's because of the source of that funding, that Transportation Alternatives Program, that federal aid funding has to go through an Act 51 agency. A township is not an Act 51 agency. Washtenaw County Parks is not an Act 51 agency. They have to partner with that type of agency, and in this case, that's the Road Commission, to be able
Okay.
to realize that funding and get the project built.
Okay, thank
We-
you.
Sure. We do have a couple of other projects I'll mention. We've been actively working with Pittsfield Township. They've been working with their consultant to develop a pathway along State Road. So if you think in the vicinity of the area south of the Ann Arbor Airport, kind of near like Avis Drive, the industrial area, they've been working on getting a pathway constructed there. They're in the midst of the design process on that one. And then one other one that continues, the work continues on and has for quite some time now, is the Huron River Drive border to border trail. The next segment would go from Delhi Metro Park to almost Wagner Road, and it'll go along the Huron River. It's actually a very interesting project because it will involve two bridge crossings of the river in order to construct that. And as with pretty much every segment of that border to border trail along Huron River Drive involves the railroad. And so there's been a lot of delay due to us awaiting answers from the MDOT Office of Rail and Amtrak. Because that rail system, that corridor is owned by the MDOT Office of Rail, but it is maintained and operated by Amtrak. So those two parties have to agree when we ask a question, and sometimes that takes what seems to be an awfully long time.
There's also significant right-of-way acquisition
That's
for,
correct.
for the
That's
trail,
correct.
that county parks and
Yep.
our folks are working through.
And eagle permitting. You can imagine that when you're building two new bridges over the Huron River, that is quite an undertaking from an eagle permitting standpoint, so.
And this is 2 of 7. Were there 7 bridges in the original B2B plan? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
Gosh, I don't remember.
Seems like it was 7.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Joanne?
Of no.
No. It was an incredible number.
Yeah, the last one we did was segment D3. That was from Zeeb to Delhi Metro Park. That involved one river crossing. The one previous to that was D2. That involved 2 bridges. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the one prior to that, I don't remember.
Yeah.
There's definitely at least one crossing. I think it's only one, I think.
Yeah.
And that's all I've got on the non-motorized projects. Mr. Lee, you'd like to speak to the operations department?
Sure. Okay. You mind if I use this, Brent?
Mr. Harris.
Yeah, Mr. Harris is on his way. No, I'm fine with this. Yeah, thank you. All right, so Ken will come on up here in a second with me and talk a little bit about our maintenance for the season. Right from the start, you know, a lot of what we do is really preservation. So some of the conversations we had earlier today, and especially what's going on right now, Ken and Jared, which Jared is out literally probably chasing after what's going on right now and seeing what's going on. So he's a little harder to catch. But preservation, starts with crack sealing, young condition of a pavement, that good or fair condition. So we crack seal it, kind of seal up the cracks, buy ourselves some time, and then within a year or two, we're trying to chip or fog seal the road, usually a combination of both. So that's that seal coating project that we talk about quite frequently. Here's that description. We use this quite often. You've probably seen this in some of our social media posts, some of our public outreach events. This is really one of the bases that we talk about. Here's that crack seal where we're just trying to get in there and fill that void that gets created. That's natural. It's going to occur. We'd love if roads didn't crack, but the flexibility in nature of flexible pavement, they do create some cracks eventually. So you do see that. So we try to protect that gravel base and the rest of the sub base underneath it from infiltration of water or other debris at that point. Yep.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, Adam, not here in Washtenaw County, but when I'm in Wayne or other counties,
Mhm.
there is like a crack that goes vertical down the road.
Longitudinal. Yep.
Yeah, and that, I don't understand that. I can understand.
Transverse cracking, so
Yeah.
side to side. Yeah, so what you're seeing is likely the seam or the joint, as a lot of us refer to. So that's why you see a lot of the projects that come across now. We have like void filling membranes and certain types of joints that we put down while we're paving, or they sometimes call it a cold joint. What that is actually where the paver, it only can reach out so far. And most of the time they pave these roads under some type of traffic. So to create the crown, that's basically the split. And so that's where basically consider it one pass of the paver and then another pass of the paver where those are butted up against that joint. So where we come in, so historically, I guess I'll come back to that. So you, like the cracks you see are jobs that didn't have some type of void filling membrane set or some type of pre-membrane, or excuse me, a pre-sealer put down. They start to open up within a few years. And so then crack sealing in theory should come by and remedy that. So we do that internally for any jobs that we don't have a joint sealer, but most of our jobs now, you'll hear them speak of the VRAM, which is a sealant that we basically have them put down. So they'll pave, they put that sealer down, and then we pave right over top of it, and you kind of create a little bit of a sandwich. It reactivates with a little bit of the temperature and the heat, and then essentially seals that joint from the bottom up, as opposed to us coming in later and
Right.
sealing over top, which we still would and likely will on any job, just because you want to make sure you prevent that water from infiltrating. But
I just
that's
don't
really
see
that crown.
that
Yeah, over,
in this count, you know, it's just like, what is, it, you know, that looks kinda.
We're lucky to have a really good system
Yeah.
and good timelines with everything. Sometimes you don't see that on most of our roads because we get back and we're actually seal coating it first.
Okay,
And we kind of skip the process because we refined that down and it's relatively affordable. So that's part of our routine process to kind of seal that whole segment.
I was just gonna say, most of our road network is two-lane county roads. When you get into Oakland or Wayne, some of the larger roadways where you got multi-lanes, you're gonna have a crack at that cold joint where that lot line is. Typically, our crack is right where that center line is, so sometimes it get covered up by paint, two yellow lines, so you don't,
I've
may
not
not
seen
be as noticeable. But definitely that longitudinal joint is there, and that's a real big reason why we do seal coat program, is it really helps to seal up those longitudinal joints. We do have multi-lane roads like Plymouth Road and Carpenter Road. Ultimately, those joints did get wide, particularly the Carpenter Road, which we just resurfaced a few years ago.
Yep.
The segment between Michigan Avenue and Textile, those joints all opened up. And that was one of the reasons why we chose to do a resurfacing project to preserve that pavement. Because one of the things that you're doing while you're preventing water from coming in, ultimately, if it goes untreated, you're gonna have a pothole there. And it'll start to degrade because the water will get into that crack, freeze thaw, and ultimately creates voids, and a pothole will arise. We're trying to avoid that with all the work that our crews do for preventive maintenance.
Yep, that's
I
correct.
think you're
Yeah.
doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's the team. The team helps that, our scheduling, everything helps that. That's really Ken and Jared scheduling a lot of that, and then working with engineering to kind of get on a bit of a cycle. That's really that managing that asset. You know, we talk about that at length, and our millage really keeps us moving in that direction because it gives us enough funding to be doing more preventative than reactive maintenance. And so that's what, one, it saves money, but two, it gets us on this schedule. And our materials have improved as well with our processes. So it's helped us kind of twofold there. So really on that same line, and this is why you probably don't see some of those joints opening, because we've gotten to a point where we've been able to come in and seal coat very recent after a project. So most of the time the year after, if not within 3 years, we're usually able to get back and seal a road. So we seal the whole thing. And so that's the seal coat project. That is basically spraying asphaltic material to seal everything down. And I'll show you the next picture real quickly. And then we'll embed those stones in there with our rollers that we were talking about in the earlier portion of working session about stone loss, not stone loss, and kind of how we mitigate them. So here, this picture is very simplistic, but it's helpful in describing all of this. So the liquid black that you see there, that is that sealer. So that's that sealer going down on the road to really create that waterproof membrane, the goal to keep the water off of us and out of any of the cracks that have created or been created. And then the little bit of stone speckle kind of looks like salt and pepper behind that yellow machine, which is referred to as our stone spreader. That's the stone actually being spread, the aggregate spread. And then later on, after the trucks come through there, then we have rollers that come through and knead that down into that. So if I flash back, it kneads that down into the actual, embed it in the tar.
So the stone first, then the
Sealer first.
sealer
So,
first.
yeah, fair, good pavement. Then we seal it. And then while that sealer essentially hot still, then we lay the stone right on top of it to embed that down. The sealer does the job. The stone is basically giving you a little bit of wearing friction for the vehicles. Because consider it like a driveway that gets sealed, could be a little bit slippery in the winter or the springtime or just in rain in general. So you can imagine if we sealed the whole roadway and that sealer essentially cured up, and then we got rain and people driving 40, 50 mile an hour, little bit problematic. So we capitalize by jamming that stone in there, essentially. You just knead it right into that material, and then it's basically grabbed by the tar. And there is what we refer to, this is one of our distributors. So this is actually spraying that tar treatment. I know I'm kind of walking backwards, but what it does, it ties in with our fog seal as well. So I'm going to kind of describe two parts of our process with one set of photos here. Same process occurs when we prep the road and we seal the road with the actual seal coat portion before the stone goes down. Same unit, we'll spray just a different type of material, a little thicker. We'll spray that, and then we spread our stone, and then we come back later in the season, which at this point, we're right about in that transition right now. The crew's hoping to finish up. Ken and Jared are hoping to get done, we'll say this week, but essentially today is our goal. And then we'll switch over and start preparing ourselves to do the fog seal. So then we come back with the same unit, just different material, thinner, and go back over top of that stone. And that's another sealer. So essentially that's a second sealer that's getting spread over top all the stones. It also gives us an aesthetic of fresh asphalt pavement. And then it also helps our lines become more visible, so they're more conspicuous. So they pop a little bit better. And so that's essentially kind of what we started. It started maybe the second or third year Ken and I were here, so probably 9 years at this point. I think we've been doing it pretty much consistent. And it's trend with the industry in general, to get that secondary sealer on there as well. And then during that process, this is something we like having this in here because it's something we talk about for our construction kickoff season or part of the season. That social media outreach and that public meeting that we hold, we always want to talk about this because when we fog seal, we try to keep the road open to traffic. So we utilize these pilot cars. So that's kind of the safety conversation. So usually Aaron and Burkholtz and I kind of talk about the safety side of things with projects in general. So this is something it's a good slide to see. This is what we really give to the public if you guys haven't seen some of our public outreach. And that pilot car basically just has the traffic follow it down through there, kind of sets a pace to control the traffic as you're going through the zone. It works really good for the fog sealing, gives a little bit of control. And also what it does is it actually lets the vehicle's tires like run that material in the ground. So it actually helps us set the road, cure the road at the same time. So we kind of utilize our traffic to benefit us. So they're going slow enough so they're not slinging stuff all over the place. So it actually helps us go faster and more efficiently by keeping it open and moving the traffic across it. Because if not, you essentially have to wait for the paint to dry, so to speak. So you would have to wait maybe an hour or so, sometimes longer, depending if it's tree cover, a little bit of humidity for the day. So it's really nice to kind of use this, and we refer to it as kind of mechanically breaking the liquid and prepping it. So that's what the pilot cars really benefit from that. And then general maintenance, which we talk about quite a bit. I'll highlight a few of these, but be relatively brief about that. And then I want to explain this time of the year. And now we start to kind of strategize how we do maintenance because you're getting to the point of dry, a little bit of rain here and there, and really capitalizing for dust control. So a few things I do want to take note and talk about on the right side of the screen. Obviously, our incident response is very important. We have to respond, whether it be in District 6, the state trunk line, maybe from District 1, we really have to respond with whatever they need us to help with, all hours of the week. So that keeps us pretty busy in operations, and sometimes it does actually draw out, depending on the type of incident. We'll have engineering staff with us, maybe to do a little investigation. But then the two bullets underneath there, sign repair and signal work, that's actually part of our engineering department. That's a traffic and safety department. That team, nothing to do with our department, but that team's out in the middle of the night with us as well, doing a lot of things. So they have the same responsiveness and need to go out because all their devices are safety sensitive. Like 100% of the devices are safety sensitive. Where sometimes we're out because it's just debris on the road that's kind of safety sensitive, but maybe just obstructing, where their stuff is 100% necessary for the road function. Join.
Sorry, Commissioner McCollum.
Adam, so the sign repair, you respond to people calling in or fix it or whatever, or is there a regular going around looking at the both?
Strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, Brent Schlack, Director of Engineering. Yeah, it's both. So Julie Nixon's our sign foreman, and she puts together projects that will go and, because we're required by law to replace our signs based on the retroreflectivity of those signs. And so we use our inventory to go and replace those signs, but then we have those that are hit, after hours, and she'll dispatch a crew out. And we hear that through our WCRC Fix It, through our after hours call in. So a lot of, or our own crews seeing down signs that we'll take note of and replace.
And the typical call out would be for stop signs.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, so if a stop sign would be definitely a safety concern for us. There are certain instances where the stop ahead, where you really can't see the stop sign, so you need the stop ahead. So we will call a crew out for that. For our curve signs, so our chevrons or target arrows, some of those are definitely, we want to keep the vehicles on the road, and so we'll call a crew in for those.
Thank you.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair,
Green?
does the road hazard removal include deer carcasses?
Yes and no. It kind of depends where they're at. Most of the time, we just try to let nature do nature's course and they'll get moved out of the lane. Our response is if it's laying in the lane and then we move it to the shoulder of the road. We don't physically load them out and take them to a recycling center or anything like
Right.
that. We just clear the road of the debris,
Okay.
which in that case, the debris or obstruction would be the carcass.
Okay.
All right. So with that, I'm going to talk about road grading and scheduling. All of this we've kind of covered and kind of educated the board on, but what I do want to touch on a little bit with going into scheduling. So that's obviously our grader in the midst of grading a road for dust control or scraping, sometimes we refer to. And then obviously dust suppression application with the tanker there spreading it on the road. The part of the year we're in really right now, which is where Ken and Jared and the foreman have to get creative, is we're in a portion of the year where it's not entirely dry, so we can benefit from some of the changes we made over the last few years of taking our dust control back in-house and not making it a project piece from the local road program and not having townships help pay for that, because we can balance our needs that way. And I kind of used that when you described the board a few years ago about controlling our destiny a little bit. And we talk about that with our crews and with the townships as well. Some townships are accepting of that we're trying to be logical. Some townships are still trying to learn that and have questions. Why did you only do this twice and this road 3 times? But our goal is to treat most road segments 3 times. And Barb's smiling. We do explain this from time to time. But it is the truth of the matter where the foreman can make good decisions, because sometimes leaving a road untouched and having a little bit of dust is actually better for the road and the area at the time. And then trying to capitalize when we get moisture, because if we go out, and I'll flash back, if we go out and this road was exceptionally dry, we would actually be fracturing a lot of the stones and actually degrading the road while we're trying to shape it up. So we try to capitalize any moisture we can, take advantage of, but we have to balance that as well, because some roads, as they get older, and I say older as in degrade a little bit more, the stones themselves start to fracture and break down, and you have more fine material. And so you can't be as aggressive or capitalize on the moisture content as much, because it could get, for the lack of a better term, slimy. And it could actually go the wrong way, which relates to what we talk about in the springtime and scheduling, how when the roads are trying to thaw, we try not to touch them sometimes, because sometimes they can't sustain any more moisture. And then they start becoming real soft and they kind of push, or like think of if your drywall gets wet in the bathroom, how it becomes kind of punky and you can kind of put your thumb through it. Yeah, it's just sloppy in general. So that's the balance that Ken, Jared, and the foreman kind of go through this time of year. Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win on that, but we're really good at what we do. So we really try to take advantage of the moisture that we are given.
So Adam, I know it's counterintuitive, but just to be clear, in order to apply dust control, you need moisture in the gravel aggregate.
Correct.
It's gotta have moisture in order for that dust control to be applied. You can't apply dust control when it's bone dry.
Correct. It's kind of twofold, because you need the moisture to actually have the fine particles start to lock together on the road itself. And then also the dust suppression, so our mineral well brine, that's hygroscopic. So that's looking for moisture to actually try to solidify, try to lock things together as well. So you need some moisture to spread over top, or excuse me, you need moisture present to spread this dust suppression over top of it, to really get it to physically draw into the road.
So you can see the picture there you are grading,
Mhm.
creating a windrow and trying to set the crown of the road. The next picture,
Yeah, so this is
you can
road grading.
see it's already graded and the dust control is being applied. And ultimately what it will do is it will have a crust.
Mhm.
It's all said and done, it'll essentially have a crust.
Yep.
And you won't see the aggregate so much, you'll see more of a crust.
Yeah.
And then that is a great gravel road for some time. You really don't want to break that crust
Correct.
until the opportune time for another regrading.
Yep.
When you start to get that chattering and potholes.
Correct.
So it's very much a factor of how much volume's on that road. So that's where it's really in the hands of the foreman to evaluate and to go, all right, is it time? Do I need to schedule a grader? When is that time? Okay, well, if I've got grader, I've got to have moisture in order to reapply that dust control. So it's very much
It's a
a
balancing act.
balancing act.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it is a balancing act, and that is really why bringing that back in-house helps the townships and also helps us and helps our roads. I mean, there's quite a few factors in that where we can let a road be solid, be compact, and leave it ride for a while, because that's really gonna preserve that road longer. And then also, just aside from not needing the townships to.
And when you would say bring it back in house, we always did the work.
Mhm.
It was just a fact of if you put it in a township agreement that we're gonna do it 2 times or 3 times, then you had to do it from a milestone standpoint.
Yeah, we
All
have a
right,
commitment.
regardless of the crust looks good, we've got to come back and because we've committed to doing this.
Mhm.
So we've got to
And they paid for it.
regrade it and
Yeah.
dust control it.
So we-
And ultimately that caused some issues from
Yeah.
a resource standpoint.
Yeah, we found it.
Does it make sense?
Right, we found it a bit challenging, and it's honestly, it's harder on our machines even to physically break that, because you're fracturing stones that you want to stay there. So it was an opportunity for us to finally make certain changes for that we could. So we're in a good place that it's, we've been capitalizing on that since then. And then I do have 2 more things here on this slide that we'll talk about, then I'll move on. Roadside mowing, as you're all familiar with. One key note to that, again, that, we came to the board in December with the intent of mowing all the system twice, per year. So that started this year in 2025. We're hoping to reap quite the benefit to that. We're gonna work on our staging. That's likely what Jared is probably, reviewing a little bit out in the field right now at the moment even. Try to adjust that a little bit and try to mow some of our primary system first. Organized area, the roads at more curvature, maybe narrower, try to take care of those as soon as we can. And then the longer straight segments of road that are wider, we can wait to mow those a little bit. So we'll try to mow the, urbanized area first and then mow the rural runs because they're a lot longer. I mean, longer, like physically miles longer. And then obviously we have street sweeping that we still perform twice throughout the year. That's both primary and local. And then we do have a few townships that sometimes request some additional sweeping, which is supplemental, which is great. Ypsilanti partners with us almost every year on that. Really just to benefit the areas that they pick, and we get a little bit more of the sweeping in the subdivisions.
And when you mention a change, ultimately in December, we approved, the board approved a budget that accounted for 2 mowings on primary.
Correct.
And then 2 mowings on local. Previously, it was just 1 mowing on local.
One,
Right.
and it was, as you all probably know from traveling some of the local roads, it would grow back faster than we could keep up with it.
It
And
was
so,
unmanageable.
yeah, it really was. It just, and then, it goes from grass to eventually thistle, to eventually stalk, to eventually some type of tree. And now you're in a whole different type of maintenance, which we'll keep talking on as we go.
Yeah, I think a future working session, we're gonna talk about roadside vegetation control, and that's something we wanna talk on.
Yeah.
In September, I believe.
Yeah, because it literally is forever growing and forever changing. It doesn't get any easier.
Joanne, did you have a
Yes,
question?
I did. Thank you. Adam, the roadside mowing, does that include the MDOT agreement of mowing? their
Yeah,
area?
technically, yes. We do mow for the state, but it won't, not the same cycle. So the state only prefers once. If they have
Okay, so
residual
they prefer
funding,
once.
yeah, if they have residual
Okay.
funding at the end of the year
Okay.
or enough funding, sometimes they'll do select areas. So probably 2 or 3 years ago, we started working on basically the off-ramp areas, the infield areas at all the ramps, the entrance and exit ramps. Tried to start more in the urban area because of the football season that would come in the fall, try to clean those up. And then we've kind of branched out across the county now and also north and south as well. But yeah, so as of right now, one cutting, budget wise, I don't hold my breath. I don't expect to do a second cutting annually, but that's usually the push from Ken Jarrett and Tim Hackbarth, the state trunk line supervisor, the foreman, to work with the state as we have budget meetings, as we kind of work that budget down through the year. If we have residual really it's almost $200,000, we try to get another round of cutting in.
So if someone, there was a challenge with overgrowth, with the MDOT roads where you couldn't see, it was a traffic hazard.
Mhm.
Would that be they would call that in, would that be something you would do extra?
Yeah, so those that we have that essentially in our contract, we can go out and mow
Okay.
specific areas, and the state also has a few crews that go around and do special mowing like that from their special projects crew. And then we annually, for the past, I believe, 5 years, maybe 6 now, we rent a brush mowing unit, which ours should be showing up. It might actually be here. I don't know if it's showed up yet or not, Ken, but so we can go out and mow some of those areas. This year, we're going to focus on M52 on the south end of the county, just because that's been the area that the state's requested we worked on. But yeah, so let's say there's an area that within the right of way that there's some concern,
Right.
really, as long as it gets reported to us or the state at some point, then we can pick and go, because the state's very responsive. We have a great relationship with them. They usually find money for us when we need to do something like that, or give us a temporary work authorization where we can have a specific budget for one little project like that.
Thank you.
Yep. And then really scheduling, I've kind of talked about that the whole time, so I won't touch too much more on that, but that's really through the mid-April through mid-November, where we start to build our season. And it really depends on what kind of weather we're seeing. As you guys know, a lot of our stuff is weather-based. But that's really what I kind of talked on there, is just, it's more as needed, dry road beds to start. And then once it starts getting warmer and you start to see the dust, then we start balancing that. Are we getting enough rain? Do we have any moisture present? And then we kind of build from there. What we do from mid part of the season through that mid-November, we really start to try to seal all the unpaved road segments back up. And I mean, seal back up as get them in good shape, and a good crown on them, so we can have them at least sustainable and manageable for the winter. Because we do like a little bit of crown. And the reason for that, in the winter time, we set that crown a little steeper, at least that's our goal. Because in the winter time, when we have ice present, we refer to it as crack the crown. You'll hear us talk about in the winter. We try to expose 1 foot, 2 foot of the center of the road. And by doing that, we try to get back down to the gravel. So we start with a little bit of a crown, and then we eventually flatten that as we go through the scrapings in the winter time, trying to provide some traction on that ice and snow for the people driving through those rural routes. And then obviously the off-season projects, sometimes we are put into those situations where we do need to work on something in the winter. So that's really just, that poses quite the scheduling challenge. Because if frost is present in the ground, that it's very limiting to what we can do excavation wise. Sometimes we do have to do it. They do make machinery that can successfully crack some of that frost, but we try to reserve that for when it's emergency needs and the rest of the time, because obviously we have one very big focus project in the winter, which is winter maintenance. So that keeps us very busy. We have quite the responsibility with that. Any free time, free schedule time in the winter is when we really try to do that forestry work. As I said, stuff is very weather dependent, but a good example is rain delays. Sometimes rain is good, and other times rain is less than desired. So appreciate the time. I'll bring Brent back up, and then we kind of have a question and answer here if anybody has anything further.
Thank you. Questions?
Yep,
Oh,
question.
go ahead.
I was going to just say, one area that we could, actually Tiffany can look at our website. This is a good tool for us. And Tiffany can jump out of the presentation here. Actually, I can unplug before we get questions and answers. And then she can jump into our website and show the public how to access our projects. So again, it's a good resource for anyone that's looking for information on our projects. So you can see here, this is the overall map. These are it's an interactive map, so you can select one of the roads, and then it'll give you more information. You can see this is North Territorial, and then you can click more information, and that'll take you to the project page or the card that we have, and then you can see what the status of that is, where we're at with this project. and what we've done up to date. This project, we did a countywide public engagement, but this also will follow through our weekly updates. So it's another area that you can get more information. So these are our project, and you can see these are the project cards that you can click on whatever specific project is out there. And then Tiffany and her staff do an excellent job putting out the, and that's our most newest card would be the Maple Foster Bridge, and it contains a detour, contains our media release for information. As we work through this project, we'll be populating this this portion of our website. Yep. Yeah, and then we have a card that includes all of our countywide paving. So you click on that and then you can get to all the locations that would have information on it. So we're on Liberty Road now. So that'll be a good one to, we're actually paving the main line today, finishing that up. And so you can see all the information, who to contact, what public meeting and that information. You can click that to subscribe to for those updates. It'll notify you on when the updates are provided for each one of the projects, or you can choose the township that you want more information on.
Commissioner Green?
There's a lot of great information on this website.
Yes, there is.
Who's responsible for inputting it?
Our communication team, so Tiffany Oliphant and her team are responsible for updating, and of course, you know, we have to supply that. There's a whole process that we have in place for when a new media release needs to go out. She'll help prepare that, and then actually Aaron Burkholz, our Assistant Director of Engineering, he'll review that, and then she'll publish it for the public to see.
They do a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work, but it's excellent information for those that have interest in our projects. And we get a lot of clicks on our project page and even on our weekly report, which a lot of our maintenance activity is located on that weekly work schedule. And so you can see all the activity for each week. This is published every Thursday and for the upcoming week.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, comments?
I don't see anything.
I think we
Thanks,
asked
Brad.
all during the presentation.
Mr. McMinnell, anything else?
Well, that concludes our agenda.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the working session.
So moved.
Second.
Tiffany, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Smurs,
Yes.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes. Working session is adjourned. See you all at 1 o'clock for the regular meeting.